Hey, it's Jay. I wanted to extend a special thanks to those of you who have listened and left reviews on iTunes for this podcast. Please leave a review if you haven't done so already. We sincerely appreciate it. You can also find our app in our Apple App Store called Big Buck Deer Hunter 2015 and in the Google Play Store for Google and Android devices. Thanks for your support and enjoy the show. Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast, episode number 129. Steve Esker, How to Kill Multiple 200-inch Giant Whitetail Bucks. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hi, this is Jeanette from No Limits TV and Master Taxidermist with the Game Preserve Taxidermy. You're listening to the Masters of the Deer Hunting Podcast World, Jay and Dusty of the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hello, my name is Jerry Hamza. I'm the author of Outdoor Chronicles, True Tales of a Lifetime of Hunting and Fishing. My favorite podcast is Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hi, this is Todd Mead, author of Backcountry Bucks and outdoor writer. Get ready for another amazing podcast with Jay and Dusty on the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Hunting Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. I am back again. My name is Jay, and on the other mic is my good friend Dusty Phillips. What's happening, my friend?
Man, we got a show lined up tonight, Jay.
There are very few men in the world, or women, that have shot multiple 200-inch bucks.
No doubt about that. You know, and it's going to be one of them shows where I think that you're going to learn quite a bit, and it's going to be a whole lot to take in about how he grows beautiful, beautiful, mature whitetails here in Ohio. Mr. Steve Esker is going to join us.
Yes, and Steve is one of the premier and most talented deer hunters that I know. He's got a formula, and as we on our quest to break down and dissect the things that world-class deer hunters do, Steve is at one of the pinnacles of this category. We've talked to some great deer hunters recently, for sure, and Steve is right there with all of them. His basement is just full of some of the largest deer known to man.
Yeah, you know, it's he's going to tell you that he's a trophy hunter, and that's what he does. He tries to grow maximum antler growth and capitalize on what he's built there, you know. And when you take pride in what you're going to harvest or kill, and you put 110% into it, and you spend the time doing what he does, and you spend the money and chase the deer and actually go in and kill the deer that you said you was going to kill. And it's not just happened once. It's been consecutive.
Tremendous. Just tremendous.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah. His formula is just off the charts. And I don't know if I can do what he does because I'd like to, but I don't know if I could because of the time constraints. It takes serious planning. I mean, quite frankly, not
only that, you need a team, and you need to have it organized and be able to lay it out the way you want it to be, and you know, you got to be able to chase it. And you know, we're going to hear in this podcast all the methods to grow and mature whitetails, and how to go about capitalizing on where they're living. And you know, not only are they in big woods and out in the country, but they're, you know, urban deer or monsters too. And it's a proven fact right here talking with Steve.
Absolutely. So before we get to Steve Esker and start figuring out what he's got going on, we're going to open up a new segment this week, Dusty, and it's going to be the Deer News with Jim Keller, our latest addition to the Big Buck Podcast.
Yeah, and everybody, we hope you welcome Jim aboard and enjoy what Jim has to talk about in the Deer News.
So here's Jim Keller with the news.
For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with this week's Deer News. This week we're going to be talking about chronic wasting disease. It's near and dear to my heart as a topic because it was recently discovered in my home state of Michigan. So as a result, I've been doing a little research on this, and then even last week, a new case was reported in Michigan. Chronic wasting disease was first identified in captive mule deer in Colorado as far back as 1967. It was a disease that predominantly affected captive deer, but over the years has been found in free-ranging deer. CWD was first found in Michigan in 2008 in a captive deer herd, but there were no other cases until just this past year. So far, 4 deer in the state of Michigan have been found to have chronic wasting disease, and they're all free-ranging deer. The most recent one was discovered or identified last week as part of a program where hunters in the area where the original chronic wasting disease deer had been found were bringing their deer to DNR check stations to be analyzed to see if they had the disease. Through that process, about 3,700 deer were brought in. Out of the 3,700, one has been reported to have the chronic wasting disease. Chronic wasting disease has been found in 20 states in the U.S. and 2 Canadian provinces. It's most widespread right now in the West, but it has worked its way east. And so a few facts that we all need to know is that it's really a disease that affects the deer's central nervous system. It not only affects whitetail deer, but it also affects elk and moose. It attacks their brain and creates small lesions in the brain that eventually result in their death. It's typically transmitted through direct animal-to-animal contact with saliva, urine, feces, blood, carcasses of infected animals that die and then infect the soil. They can get it through eating grass that's infected. If you're hunting and you think you might see a deer that you're concerned about its behavior, some things to look for in a deer with CWD are loss of body condition or emaciation, change in behavior since there's a loss of fear of humans. Oftentimes deer with CWD are hit by cars because they're just kind of oblivious to what's around them and they really don't fear anything. They'll exhibit loss of bodily control and movements, and they often drool and salivate excessively. The impact of CWD is still being understood, but we do know that it spreads easily through the herds. It will affect their population. So far, there's not many studies done on just what it's going to mean long-term to deer. There's a recent study, though, in Wyoming, kind of the first of its kind, that determined that right now chronic wasting in one part of Wyoming is killing 19% of the deer herd annually, and they anticipate that within 40 years it could eliminate that deer herd. Now, that's the first study that's been done, and it was done by the University of Wyoming, a graduate student there, and is really the first of its kind. What's a safe approach for hunters in handling venison that could potentially be contaminated with CWD? Well, first of all, if a deer looks sick or acts strange in any way, don't eat the venison. When field dressing a deer or handling the carcass or bones, be sure to wear gloves, even in an area that's not known to have CWD. Avoid eating parts of the deer like the brain, spinal cord, eyes, spleen, tonsils, lymph nodes, and you really don't even want to handle those parts if you can avoid it, because those are the parts of the deer that are most likely contaminated with the disease and would have the prions that spread it. Right now, there's no known risk to eating venison with CWD, but again, if you know the deer has been contaminated, don't eat it. But it doesn't mean that we need to stop hunting and eating venison, at least based on what's known today. If you have any ideas for future topics or have questions about this topic, please email me at jim@bigbuckregistry.com. For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News.
All right, thanks to Jim for the news. And without further ado, here's Steve Esker. Steve Esker, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. How are you, my friend?
Not too bad. How you guys doing tonight?
We're having a great night, man. We're talking to you.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Good to talk with you, Steve.
Yeah. Well, Steve, in our quest to break down world-class deer hunters, we'd like to talk to you tonight and see how you go about your day in the woods and see if we can learn a few things. That's cool.
Yeah, no problem. Fire away.
Cool, man. Where do you call home, Steve?
It's Ohio. I actually live in Ohio, but Columbus is pretty much what I call home.
Okay, very nice. And have you been there for your entire life, or is this a place that you moved to from somewhere else?
No. I grew up in northern Ohio, Fremont, Ohio, near Polk County.
Okay.
I'm a big-time walleye fisherman, so born right there by Lake Erie.
Awesome. I've heard some really good things about that spot. So you've been exposed to the land of the giants from day one. This is kind of a thing you've known your entire life.
Yeah. Not really my entire life. I grew up in northern Ohio. We don't have many deer in the area. We do down in central and southeast Ohio. I've been located here in the Columbus area for almost 20 years. I graduated college. And, so I kind of grew up, if we shot a buck, that's great. But, those just to taste.
Gotcha. And how do you go about, or how did you learn how to deer hunt? I mean, you've been exposed to it for a while, but is there somebody that you would credit to your deer hunting education, or is it something that you flew solo and just kind of taught yourself?
Did it all on our own. I've got a twin brother, Scott. So, nobody in my family. I've got 2 other brothers, sister, and none of them parents. So it's kind of one of the things that started out as a Cub Scout through Boy Scout.
Steve, if we could you kind of break down your philosophy of hunting? I mean, would you consider yourself a meat hunter first, or would you consider yourself a deer hunter or a trophy hunter? Do you even categorize yourself in any of those things?
I'm definitely a trophy hunter, but at the same end, I'm also a manager as well. I'll harvest a doe here and there, but mostly I'm looking for big bucks and big mature bucks and trying to figure out how to outsmart them.
Okay. And why do you do that? I mean, I think I have an answer, but I'm just curious. What's your answer if I ask you, why do you trophy hunt?
Well, it's an obsession. It's one of those things where, I started, like I said, I grew up as a kid and I was just a meat hunter and any deer would do. And, as I got older, I started thinking, deer are pretty easy to kill. And I started killing some nice bucks. 1994, I killed my first 200-inch whitetail. And that kind of changed the way I looked at things. That was a pretty big deal back in 1994. And, I was 26, 27 years old, somewhere around there.
Okay.
And from that point on, I really was like, wow, these giants are out here, and I know they're out here, and what can I do to start bettering myself?
And what changed? I mean, what was that switch that went on in your head that said, all right, I there's something really great about hunting a big whitetail like that? What was the change for you?
Well, the change was, you know they're there, you see them, you get them on your trail cameras. And I've shot a lot of 150 bucks. I'm not going to say they don't interest me anymore. It's just, I think the challenge to find that 4.5, 5.5-year-old deer is what I'm pursuing.
It never gets boring, obviously. Right. You've just changed.
Oh, no, there's no boredom ever.
Right. But you've changed your desires. Does it come from just like all right, I've reached that plateau last year. Now it's time to do something bigger and better and challenge myself against the elements, against the instincts of the whitetail. Is it something like that?
Yeah, it's definitely a more like that. I mean, every year, I run a gobload of trail cameras. They're in the field 24/7, 365 days a year. Unlike some people, they just put them out, when the hunting seasons are rolling around. But I'm pretty much watching the deer all year round. A lot of my off-season scouting is what's more important than in season. And, I'm running 58 cameras in the field right now between me and my brother and a couple buddies. We're running about 62 properties, and it's a lot of work. We're running cameras every 3 to 4 days, and you got to have the right properties.
How do you keep up with that much stuff? That seems like a lot of cameras, a lot of properties.
You have to have time.
Time. Okay.
If you don't have the time, you can't chase big whitetails. I really can honestly tell people that, you have to have time, you have to have multiple properties to even pick 1 or 2 targets that you go after a year.
Gotcha. So you've got 62 properties, and let's break down the day and the week. Like how does this begin? How do you begin to monitor that many cameras?
Well, there's 4 of us that kind of pick in each little section of town. Each one of us is running, 12 to 15, 20 cameras on any given day. And it works out really good that way. 3 of us are here, and then my one buddy is out of state, so he really doesn't get the opportunity to come and do all the stuff we do. He just gets the opportunity to sit in a good spot and kill a big buck every year.
Gotcha.
Good place for him to be.
How do you get on that list, Steve?
It's a tough list. You really have to grow up with me. You missed 30 years of it.
I think your opportunity is past, Dusty.
Yeah, that's phenomenal there, though. Just to hear that you got a great friend there, Steve, for sure.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So this is your deer season never ends.
No, it's all year round.
It just, so, it just so happens that certain times of the year, the state lets you carry some weapons in the woods. But you're really pursuing these deer all year round. You're monitoring your cameras. And
yeah.
What happens when you start to lock in on a particular deer? How does that play into your strategy?
Well, I'll give you a perfect example. I had a buck in 2010. The property that we have is 240 acre. It's an old tree farm that was all the rows of trees were left on it. It's got a lot of cropland. And I was chasing a deer with 24 points, and so we call it MTF 24, Tree Farm 24.
Gotcha.
And that deer, he's on 240 acres, and he's running other places too. But once I got pictures of him, I seen him, the year before. He was like a 165. I only had pictures of him, 3 or 4 times. I wasn't chasing him that year because I was after another deer that I killed in 2009. And in 2010, I wanted to find him, and he was one of those deer that would show up in just 1 or 2 locations, and I'd move 6 cameras all the way around this farm and say, okay, he runs here, but he doesn't run here. He runs here, and he doesn't run here. And then what I figured out is this deer really liked to run north and south and didn't like to run east and west. So I kind of patterned him there, and then I had him from, where I knew for sure 100% he was bedding, and then travel routes, creek bottoms, and crop fields where he was moving back and forth. So I kind of narrowed him down to almost 100 acres on the farm.
Wow. All right. So this takes camera, this takes time, this takes mapping. You got to figure out, you got to know the lay of the land too. I mean, 100 acres, it's not a huge piece of property, but certainly you've got to.
Well, in that 100 acres, he's got thousands of acres he could go to.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
But I pretty much found his core area within that 100 acres.
You had to take the 1,000 acres first and start whittling it down with all the clues.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And how many times have you been able to do this over your career?
I've been able to zero in on them pretty good over the years. I'd say, where I found a buck and had to lock him down, I'd say at least 5 of them that I had to keep moving around trying to find out where he was and where he wasn't. Do
you attribute the game camera, to one of the effective tools to start to dissect his travel routes? Okay.
Absolutely. But, and I'm in Ohio, and so we're also a bait state. So,
right.
We get to put down corn and mineral, and I'm a mineral junkie. I mean, I ran 2,200 pounds of mineral last year.
Wow.
So, the deer absolutely need it. Starting in January all the way through September, I'm pounding the mineral to them. It's way more important than any kernel of corn you could ever give them.
Any particular brand, Steve?
I use a mineral WNS. It stands for Complete Whitetail Nutrition Systems.
Okay,
gotcha. And what was the trial and error that you decided that the mineral is more important than the corn?
Well, when you put mineral out and you're getting 2,000 pictures a week just on mineral, you kind of think they need it. And I see, I see a lot of people that kill deer in other areas, not generally in my area. But I mean, the mass that I'm putting on the deer, 4-year-old deer, that 24 pointer that I shot in 2010 scored 217 7/8, and he was only 4.5 years old.
Wow.
Holy smokes.
And he was a 165 buck the year before. I've got his sheds from the year before.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're putting 50 inches on a deer in 1 year. In some cases, two deer that we've harvested where we have the sheds from before, we've actually seen 50 inches of growth on.
Wow!
Holy smokes! And you're saying this is just the mineral? The genetics play in at all, and other nutrition?
Well, definitely genetics. Okay. I won't hunt where a big buck won't live.
Okay.
There's tons of places you can go and sit and never get a picture of a 150. If I don't physically get a picture of a 150 within 2 years on a property, I won't even hunt that property anymore. I'll just cross it off the list and move to another area.
Interesting. So are you looking for, other than the game camera, are there other clues and tips and just things that you see in that property that you key in on, or is the game camera it? Is that the one thing?
Well, the game camera is one valuable asset, but truth be told, I like to look for the spots that are overlooked. So I like to look at the spot that nobody even think about hunting because a big buck's going to live in that spot.
Okay.
I've got spots that are an acre big to 300 acres, and it's the majority of my hunting properties are 10 acres or less.
Interesting. Let's break that down a little bit. How do you go about identifying those pieces of properties that are kind of overlooked? What sticks out in your head?
Well, some of the things that really stick out is if I'll look at an aerial, I'll look at, nice river bottoms. I'll look at developments and housing communities and things that butt up to them where people might not be bothering deer, where there's nice ravines and dips. And, I do a lot of urban hunting. So I'll look at the possibility where a big buck could be. And then I look at how far out of a regular pattern would that big buck travel to bed all day long where I know nobody's going to bother him. And then I'll look for that little spot.
Okay. Now, the properties that you're describing, these are not necessarily your properties that you own, but it sounds like you have to do some door knocking. And
I do a lot of door knocking.
All right.
I do own a couple of properties. Two of my 200s came off of one of my own properties.
I got a quick question for you. I've heard a story about a feller knocking on some doors around the golf course. Is there any story behind that you'd like to tell real quick?
Golf courses are fantastic.
Is there one in particular about being an insurance agent?
Insurance agent? Which one's that?
Where you might have been knocking on a door and a guy opened the door with a Bone Collector t-shirt on and you said, I'm trying to sell some insurance.
Oh, that's my brother, Scott.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Tell us that story, Steve, if you could.
He went to knock on the door to get a permission, and the guy answers with a Bone Collector shirt on. So immediately you're like, well, I'm not going to ask for hunting permission because this guy hunts, and I don't want to key him off to what I might be after. So, those things happen sometimes, and that was just luck that the guy answered the Bone Collector shirt, and he knew to say, oh, I'm selling insurance.
I was talking to Ed Wade a little bit about you guys, and I thought maybe it was for you, Steve, but it's for your brother.
No, it was Scott. Yeah, that was
Bummer.
last year. He was chasing a 190 buck that he killed on the third day of the season last year, and it was just funny. He needed to get in somewhere in that backside with the southwest wind in his favor. So.
That's funny. So you had to do some quick thinking on his feet to back out of there.
Yeah, and sometimes that happens. You never know who else is a hunter.
Right.
Yeah, and you definitely don't want to tip them off what you're after.
Right. Steve, let's talk a little bit about how you go about obtaining permission. And I think everybody's got a different strategy. What's yours? How do you approach a landowner? Do you wear certain clothes? Do you have a certain script that you go through? How do you do that?
Absolutely. I'm never going to go to a landowner without being at least almost well dressed. Dockers and a nice shirt. I don't want to show up in. Sometimes I'll go in jeans if I still have a nice golf shirt or something on. But, sometimes you just want to have a little more respect to the landowner to show them that you're a clean-cut individual and really getting permissions is not that difficult.
And how do you go about it? You say you knock on the door. What's the first thing you say when they open up?
Usually you introduce yourself and you talk to the landowner and you kind of figure out if they're gonna be disgruntled or if they're gonna be happy. And you kind of can judge which way the conversation's gonna go. And even the ones that answered the door disgruntled, I've got a good personality. My brother's got a good personality. We're both in sales, so we deal with people on a daily basis. Okay. And one thing about talking with people is you just kind of trying to find that thing that's going to make them at ease. And you get them to start talking and opening up, and you get a lot of no's. But you'd be surprised at how many no's work into something else. I'll give you a perfect example. I've been chasing a nice deer. I've been watching him for 2 years, and the guy, I finally got the guy to give me permission to run a trail camera last season. And this season, I had a deer that was 180. He's a 7x7 with 4 extra tines, so he's 18 points. He's a little short on the time length, and then I had another bigger typical that I knew would net Boone and Crockett, so I chose to let that other deer go. But before I chose to hunt the other deer, I talked to the landowner and said, I'd really like to pursue this deer maybe this year if something goes on and I can't get to this other one. And he was just like, you've done good for me. You've helped me around the house and the yard. And, I fixed his garage door opener for him. And, you do things here and there for him. And, because I'm in and out of this guy's driveway, every 3-4 days, so he's, you start to grow on him. And this year I asked him if I could actually pursue the deer this year, and he wrote me a permission slip to actually hunt. So, it takes time sometimes. One thing I like to do, I like to say, can I just run a camera? Because usually that helps you get to the landowner a few more times. And then you can, they get some trust in you.
That's a good perspective right there. Can I just run a camera? Nothing more.
Yeah.
Just let me see what's out here.
Yeah. It's generally because I know what's out there. Mm-hmm. I've seen them in a bean field. I've seen them, I've seen the deer elsewhere, but I know I've already done my aerials and my homework, and I know that I need to set. One thing I do is I always set every set. If I'm only going to be able to hunt a property, it's always going to be on the west side of the road, so the southwest wind is in my favor. And we're predominantly a southwest wind coming across Ohio. I'd like to be able to hunt 70% of the days.
Okay, very interesting. Well, let's get into some gear check stuff, Steve. I'd like to kind of pick your brain about the types of gear that you use in the woods. Dusty, you want to kind of take the lead here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's start with the game camera.
I use multiple game cameras. The best cameras for longevity is by far the Moultrie. I like the 880 series, the older model. The 990 has been good. They're on the pricey side. They have their problems, like all game cameras do. But they lack a little bit in the trigger on the pictures. They lack a little bit in the quality. They try to make them more smaller and more megapixels, and I think they need to go back to plain Jane technology and go from there. But the thing I like about the Moultrie is I'm getting 4 seasons in the field, never pulling it out. So, and I'm not getting that. I run some coverts. I like the coverts for video mode. It's fantastic for video mode. The MP6 is a great camera in the blackout. And I've recently been using the cheap $39 camera from Wildview from Field & Stream and Dick's Sporting Goods that they have on sale right now, and it's a fantastic camera. It's got great battery life. It takes good pictures. It takes many pictures. So I'm having good luck with that camera as well.
When you talk about battery life, how many pictures are you normally taking with a camera, Steve?
I'd say half of my setups are getting 1,500 to 2,000 pictures a week.
And how many pictures do you think you're doing on batteries? One set of batteries.
As it gets colder, you get less pictures. I'm probably changing batteries out every 3 weeks.
Gotcha. Are you doing recyclable or rechargeable batteries, or are you just buying batteries?
I went that route, and you're running too many cameras. I've tried all the lithiums. I've done all that route, the lithiums. There's no gain from it. You go to Sam's Club, you could buy 48 pack of batteries for $18. You just get used to that. You're going to have a $500-600 battery bill a year.
Right, yeah, it makes sense. If you want to chase it, you got to use it. Let's get in a little bit about your hunting camouflage. Let's run through your camouflage setup.
I'm not particular to anything. The mossy oak patterns are all nice. I've got some Sitka gear that I like to wear in the springtime for turkeys. But I'm not, camouflage isn't really that important. Because most of my kills are from a ground blind and I wear black. So, black and blue jeans in a lot of cases.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Talk about ground blinds. What kind of ground blinds are you setting up?
I'd say the majority of them are pop-ups, but I've got a couple of rednecks. I've got a monster shadow hunter on my property, 6x10. I might as well move a satellite dish and TV and a couch in there because it's so roomy. But it's a pretty nice blind. And that one sits about 12 feet. The rednecks are up 10 feet. And then all the rest of them are just pop-ups here and there.
So you're saying that some of them you've got them up on like a pedestal?
Yeah. Yep.
Homemade pedestal, or you purchased a pedestal?
The rednecks come with the platform, and the Shadow Hunter, I built the platform for it.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's get in a little bit. You got a backpack that you carry to the woods, will you?
I do.
Let's run through what you got in your backpack.
Depending on how big the trip is, if I'm going out west or in Mexico or something, mule deer hunting, I'm taking a bigger pack, and that pack is a Sitka gear pack, and my smaller pack that I hunt locally is Tenzing.
If let's say you're hunting whitetails in Ohio, what are you packing?
The smaller pack.
Yeah, what do you got in the pack?
I've got a Canon XA10 camera. I have burnt calls. I got rattling antlers, extra batteries, binoculars, rangefinder, you name it. Whatever I could put in there. Scents, sprays.
Run through your particular brand of scent sprays.
Scent sprays, I like Dead Downwind. Seems to do pretty good. I use my ozonics religiously. As far as deer scents, I really like the Evercomb and the DS1.
You said Evercomb?
Evercomb and DS1.
Awesome. You had, how long have you been using the Evercomb?
At least 5 years.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's an awesome product.
Okay.
And I like to keep it close. I usually pull the speed stick out of my bag and put it in one of my side pockets. Sometimes you get deer coming down the fence row and they're acting funny. You get does that might want to start looking around, putting their head up, and sometimes I'll just pull that speed stick out and just rub it on the tree, and man, you'd be surprised how quick they just calm down.
No kidding. Right. Interesting.
Right. Yeah. They get that whiff, and it's just a speed stick. All you got to do is rub it on the tree next to you.
So this is as you're viewing deer come down, you'll literally take out the stick.
Oh, yeah. If they come in and they start whipping their head up and smelling around, that they smell something that, you can have every scent product out there and something's still going to escape. And some of these deer are so smart, they smell everything. When you urban hunt, they smell everything on you.
Interesting. So the Evercomb comes in like a speed stick where it's almost like a deodorant bar.
It's like a deodorant bar, and the VS1 also comes in a speed stick. I use both of them in the speed stick.
No kidding.
I don't know. I can't recall who the company is that makes them. I just know the two names that I buy.
Give me a 1 to 10 scale that's helped you kill a mature buck.
I'll give you a 1 to 10. I'll give you a 5 to 6. I have a particular case where I had to calm some does down, and then I ended up killing him, 10 minutes after they went through.
No kidding. So interesting.
It worked out. Yeah, I had a foot stomper in my feed plot. She'd busted me before, and she'd blow at me, and she came in earlier that evening that I shot my 2009 buck, and she was doing her foot stomping thing, and she wasn't looking for me, but she was just trying to figure out if I was up there. She smelled something. I pulled that little speed stick out and I rubbed it on the tree, man. She just wiggled her tail, calmed right down, started eating in the food plot.
No kidding.
Yeah.
A great example of a product in use there. So what kind of bow are you shooting?
Shooting a Cam X crossbow.
A Cam X crossbow. Okay. What's the draw weight on that?
175 pounds, 325 feet per second.
Oh, that's a fast one. I'm assuming carbon arrow.
It's a great bow.
Carbon arrow?
Yes, it's a carbon arrow.
What are you tipping the arrow with? What kind of broadhead?
I shoot 100 grain Schwacker. I'm shooting the 3 blades this year.
And that's fixed blade Schwacker?
3 blade Schwacker.
Yeah, fixed blade, not mechanical, correct?
Oh, no, it's mechanical. I'm sorry.
Okay, yes, gotcha. Okay, mechanical Schwacker 3 blade. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Jay, you want to take us on a hunt?
Yeah, let's, Steve, if we could, I had a quick question about your game cameras. Do you care if it's like a blackout versus infrared? Do you think that affects the deer?
I absolutely do, and all my cameras are blackout.
Gotcha. That's what I was wondering. All right, so all the cameras you set up have to be the blackout.
Well, this new Wild View, it's not blackout. You can still see the red. Mm-hmm. As long as it's not a white flash, I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't have to have that black screen in front of it.
Gotcha. Okay.
But they still see that red light. They look at it all the time. They hear the camera click. But in most of my setups, the deer get used to it.
Okay. So they've got some familiarity with the camera itself.
Yeah. Right. Yep. They've all grown up on a camera.
As much
Gotcha.
As much as you run a camera, how long do you think that it takes for the whitetail to get adjusted to that camera flash or the sound?
to a light flash or to the sound. Sometimes they never get adjusted to it. Sometimes you only get 1 or 2 pictures of them, and you got to move your camera down a fence row to trick him and try to get another picture of them.
Gotcha. So that there's a chance that there's some that's smart enough to actually, I don't know if I should say that. There's some deer that won't adapt to it, and you have to actually relocate them.
That's right, and that's one of the reasons you keep moving cameras around sometimes to zero in on a core area.
Gotcha.
Right, very good. Steve, I was wondering if we could go on a deer hunt with you and virtually and reminisce and go back to one of your most memorable deer hunts that you've ever been on. And I was wondering if you could take us on a play-by-play, like we're kind of sitting on your shoulder watching this whole thing go down. Do you have a particular hunt in mind that might fit that bill? My
2010 deer.
Okay.
Awesome way that I found him and found where he was at and how to try to time it and plan it. I'm huge on using the moon guide or solunar and the moon phases. I tell a lot of people that, the last 7 deer I've killed, I haven't even hunted 40 days in total in 7 years. So what I like to do is, the reason I run the cameras every 3-4 days is because when your target's there, he's generally there for a couple days. He doesn't move off. And as you start getting into the middle of October, he might be hanging around some does.
Right.
So if you see him one day, there's a good chance that you caught him on the camera there. He's going to be there tomorrow or the next day. So then I'll try and make sure the wind is right, make sure that, maybe there's a high noon moon. I love the 3rd week of October. It's been very good to me. That particular hunt, I had corn all the way around me in the fields. I had a big 40-acre thicket. This was on the tree farm, and it's very, very overgrown. I'm sitting right in the middle of the thicket, so I could, if they were on one edge, I wasn't bumping them there. If they were on another edge, I wasn't bumping there. I only went 60 yards in, found a nice little oak tree that I could only get in 15 feet. It was a pretty young tree farm. I was running corn and mineral all summer long there. I got the deer in velvet all the time. This deer disappeared on me for 32 days 2 times, exactly 32 days. And it was kind of weird. So I wasn't even pressured to hunt him at all until he showed up again. He showed up on the 13th of October, and on the 14th of October, the 13th, they were cutting the backpack field in the corn. So I figured that's what pushed him into the thicket. And then on the 14th, they were cutting the front field, and I made sure that I was going to get in there and hunt that evening. And this is only the second sit that I had sat for him. And I pretty much have to low crawl into the area, get up in the tree, get situated, get all my equipment in there. And 7:05, he come into the thicket into my area and put him down at 24 yards.
Wow. Just like that. So it sounds like you dissected this deer completely. Like you knew more than most hunters would know about a deer. And that was the difference.
It is the difference. And I mean, if you ever looked at my annual trail camera pictures, most people are just in disbelief. And they're just thinking, how do you have so many monster bucks on your cameras? And it's just, it's having the right properties and running a lot of cameras and spending a lot of time running them. I tell people I'm 90% scouting, 10% hunting.
Okay.
And it's probably even less than 10% hunting.
So the 2010 deer, what did it score out at?
That deer was 217 and 7/8 gross. He netted 208 and 2.8.
Wow, it's amazing. Let's just kind of breaking down a little bit more of this game camera activity. You get a lot of pictures, obviously, and you have
tons of pictures.
Tons and tons. How do you? What types of tools do you use to sort them out? You're plugging them into a computer. And then what's going through your mind as you're going through picture after picture of does and squirrels and big bucks? How are you categorizing this in your head?
Well, it's funny because when I go pull cards, I'll pull, 10, 12 cards at a time. And I'll have friends over that, don't do what I do on a daily basis. And they'll see me scanning through the cards like really fast. And they're like, slow down. And I said, no. And it's like, well, why are you going so fast? I said, because I'll know when I need to stop. I know what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
you get when you get into the daylight pictures, you have to pretty much slow down and go through them almost individually. But the nighttime pictures, you know exactly what you're looking for. I mean, it's just bam, there's a big rack,
Gotcha.
So, it's time consuming and exhausting at the same time. I mean, I can get through about 6 or 8 cards and I need to go take a nap. It's crazy how tiring I get looking at the computer screen going through all those pictures.
So you're really taking some technology and using it. You're using a computer. You're going through loads of cards. How many pictures are you processing in a day once you go retrieve the cards?
Oh, thousands. I'd say if I pull 10 cards, I'm probably looking at 10,000 pictures.
Holy smokes. And are you using any kind of special software to sort through this, or are you just looking at the basic computer picture software?
I've had to put 2 what's the biggies? What do you call them in computer world? 2 mega storage banks I had to put on my computer because I just had so many video clips and pictures on them that they were just, I couldn't store them anymore.
Right.
I mean, I'd wear out all my storage space and just have to keep adding and adding, but I've documented year of pictures. At one point in time, you have to say, okay, I know that buck. Let's just document 1 or 2 so I can tell, why was he here? That I can go back and figure out what wind it was and kind of things like that, the temperatures and the moon phase. And that's one thing I really enjoy about the Moultrie cameras because it gives you that information on your camera, and a lot of the other ones don't.
Gotcha. So you're kind of keeping a database of all the other data that Moultrie will keep in there as well. And do you keep notes on a notebook on the side, or are you just kind of making mental notes?
I have some mental notes. I know, like especially if he's my target buck, I'm making notebook notes. I'll start writing things down. Okay.
Gotcha. So that's a lot of pictures. So 10,000 pictures. I mean, I'm trying to envision this. I go through a few of mine, but I don't have anywhere close to that. And it's
mind blowing at times. It's like I said, I've gone to the point where I've got through 6 or 7 cards and I literally, my eyes can't focus anymore.
Right. Now, how much time do you spend looking at pictures?
I'd say 10 or 12 cards takes me at least an hour plus.
Okay. I would have guessed longer than that, but that's not too bad. But yeah.
Well, like I said, you get to
know what you're looking for.
You know what you're looking for.
Right.
Yeah. You don't stop and look at those. You don't look at raccoons. You don't look at coyotes, You're
looking for bone.
That's right. Looking for bone.
Okay. Gotcha. So a couple of things that I wanted to ask you, Steve, and these are the questions we ask all of our guests, and it's kind of like a rapid fire type situation. How old are you today, Steve?
I'm 47.
You're 47 years old. Knowing what you know today about life and deer hunting, what would you ask or what would you tell the Steve Esker 27 years ago, the 20-year-old, knowing what you know today?
This is a good question.
It's a very good question.
Yeah. I think if I was trying to tell myself at 20 years old, I would say obtain the right permissions. Don't waste so much time on properties that aren't producing. Find the right spot, run the cameras, but as a 20-year-old, we didn't have all the technology we have today. So for a 20-year-old today, I would tell them, find the right spots. And you have to have multiple spots. You can't, if you want to consistently tag a big buck, you have to have multiple spots. Okay. You can't just count on 1 or 2 properties because it's not going to happen.
Gotcha. Okay, this one's kind of difficult too. These are all difficult questions, but they're thought-provoking. You have a bunch of hunting tips that you could give somebody. If you had to pick just one, what would that number one hunting tip be?
Scout more than you hunt.
Okay. The hunt is more or less the byproduct of the scouting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right. That is exactly right. Hunting is the byproduct of the scouting.
Okay. And do you use, you seem to be a man of the field, somebody that understands how it's all connected and putting together the dots. Is there any kind of a reference that you use to educate yourself or educated yourself along the way, like a book or a particular mentor or individual or a group of magazines? Is there anything that you turn to obtain more knowledge about the whitetail?
Nothing. All self-taught. trial and error.
Okay. So,
I've never been into, reading all the magazines. I like to read other people's stories, but I mean, most stories you can't really relate to the same situations you're in.
Right. Okay. Very good. All right. And this one's kind of interesting. And we all have these things or this item that we bring into the woods, or at least most of us do. Maybe you don't, but it's usually some kind of an item, a good luck charm, a pacifier, something that just makes you feel like it's going to happen today type of thing. And then drives you crazy if you leave it in the truck. What's that one thing for you that you kind of need to have with you when you're hunting?
So my superstition things.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, I have this little, it came in one of my dog's toys, and the dog tore it apart, and if you hit it just right, it goes, woohoo! And that's always in my bag. And I'm
Can you do that again? What's the sound that it makes?
We can play it back.
Actually, my hunting bag's in my back seat here, and I can probably hit my bag, and you can hear it because I'm getting ready to travel to Baltimore. Try to hunt some sicker deer this weekend.
Oh, cool.
And, see if I can grab my little wahoo, and I always carry a buckeye.
A buckeye.
In my bag. Yeah, I'm a diehard Ohio State Buckeye fan, and just Buckeyes seem to be good luck for me.
All right, now for all those non-Buckeyes, what is a buckeye?
Buckeye comes from a buckeye tree. It's pretty widely throughout all of Ohio. It's a round little nut, kind of. It's not an edible nut by humans, but squirrels love them.
Okay.
It's just it's a dark chocolate color with a lighter tan circle on the bottom of it, and it's very smooth and shiny. I don't know how much more I can explain it.
Yeah. All right. That's all right. So it's a buckeye. So Dusty, you have to show me some of those when we get down there.
Yeah, I'm a huge Buckeye fan, and actually, my daughter's handed me a Buckeye probably 4 years ago, my oldest daughter, and it's stuck with my hunting stuff ever since.
Yeah. Well, see, you've got the lucky Buckeye with you, too.
Seems to work here and there.
All right, you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Yep.
Here's my wahoo.
That's good.
So that wahoo goes in your bag. You ever get concerned that it's going to go off when you don't want it to?
It has. I was on a mule deer hunt in Mexico, and I was trekking across, actually in pursuit of a muley, and I took the bag off, and I set my rifle up on the top of the bag, and sure enough, I hit that thing, and I went, wahoo! But fortunately for me, the shot was 300 yards away, so it didn't make much bit of a difference.
That's fantastic. Excellent. Dusty, do you have any final questions for Steve?
No, Jay, I think that Steve covered a tremendous base of topics there and really opened up to us and allowed our listeners to hear words from the horse's mouth. Somebody that's killed several 200-inch bucks.
Yes, it's a tremendous feat, Steve. And do you feel like this is a big deal? Because a lot of other hunters looking in are saying this is a big deal. How do you feel about it?
It's a big deal to me. I don't, you know how it is with everything, you just, anytime somebody posts something on you, today's hunting world I try to stay out of the social media as much as I can other than my own personal Facebook page because everybody is so hateful.
Yeah.
You get to a point where every time a big buck falls, the first thing somebody cries is high fence. And,
high fence. See that a lot.
And it used to get to me really, really bad because I know how hard I work at chasing a particular deer. And it doesn't bother me anymore. I just got to the point where, this is the 15-year-old kid on archery talk that probably don't get in the woods himself and just wants to create problems for everybody.
Yeah. What would you say to that 15-year-old?
Well, I think because a lot of kids are more into social media. I think it's the younger kids they want to hunt, but they're really not experienced to hunt.
Yeah. And
they see tons and tons of pictures of big whitetails, and whatever media they're looking at, they're probably looking at a lot of high fence deer. I don't like to slam anybody, but I'd be honest. If I was going to be totally honest, I think archery talk should change their ways. They need to crack down on it because that whole site ends up feeling like that they're all PETA people.
Right.
And that's not good for hunters. We all need to unite.
Right.
You know, hunter, I'm the first guy if I'm chasing a 200-inch whitetail and the guy next door kills him, I'm the first one to congratulate him. You know, I've learned to move on. I don't get bitter. I'm bumming, but I don't get bitter. You know, he got it done. That's all that matters.
Right. I'm with you. I'm in your camp.
You got to respect the hunter for his accomplishments, and it's just too easy for social media today to put people down, and it's not fair. It's not fair because people don't know anything about how hard me and my brother chase whitetails and the time and the commitment that we put into it.
Right.
I'm going to back that because you know, I did some months ago, maybe a year ago, and I was talking to Ed Waite, and I'm real fortunate. Me and Ed Waite's got to be pretty good friends. And he calls me and I call him pretty regular. And I know you talk to him quite a bit too, Steve. And, you know, he's a solid person to talk to and, you know, such a scholar and a gentleman and cuts up and has fun. And, you know, when somebody tells me of, you know, Ed Waite's got a lot of knowledge of whitetails. You know, Ed hasn't really killed a big buck, but my gosh, he's had his hands on a lot of big bucks.
I think Ed Waite has had his hands on more big bucks than any one man alive.
Right. You know, and when somebody of that caliber as Ed Waite tells you that, you know, Steve and Scott Esker are two of the most dedicated whitetail chasers that he knows, that sticks with me and means something. You know, it was definitely something that I wanted to pursue and getting you on the show. And not only you, but I think here in the near future, we're going to try to get with your brother and see if he would join us for an hour. And maybe we can cuss and discuss and get a little more information out of him.
Yeah. I don't have any problems doing it. I think I just did another podcast last night. So I have people regularly calling me and asking me, you know, if we can talk to you, and I enjoy giving out as much information as I can. I want everybody to be successful. If there's anything that I can give that's positive and can help somebody figure out something, you know, I want everybody to be successful.
Yeah. And that's something that puts you and your brother, and I'm sure your close friend there that comes out of state and hunts for nothing. You know, that guy.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Well, let's put it this way: he killed a 177 this year. He killed a 167 last year. Nice. A 183 the year before. Wow. A few 150s. He's on a roll.
Yeah, good deal. But you know that separates you from the rest, you guys from the rest, because you're willing to talk about it, and you're not somebody that gets jealous of another hunter, and that's what we want on the show. Somebody that's willing to talk and kind of break down what you guys do. And you know, for some people, that's a struggle and very difficult to pass on. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a lot of time and dedication to the woods for you guys and what you do. You know, and we appreciate you opening up to us.
Yes.
Yeah, not a problem at all. I was glad to talk to you guys tonight.
Steve, I had one last question, and I want to just touch on it a little bit before we let you go, if that's okay.
Yep.
Talking about the solar lunar tables, you said you've kind of come to understand that whole chart and you believe in it, and some people do, some people don't. What changed your mind about that, or what made you decide that is in fact something that you should take a closer look at?
Well, when you run along the trail cameras like I do, and then you see the amount of activity, and it falls right in line with what these charts are telling you, you have to kind of believe that it's really working. I mean, the proof is in the trail camera pictures. That the pictures are, you know, there's more during those times. The deer are moving earlier. You're getting more daylight pictures. You know, so something's meshing there. Okay.
And it's the complete verdict's still out, I would assume, but you are noticing some kind of correlation.
Oh, absolutely. And I really try to hunt. If I'm going to pick, you know, 4 or 5 days in October, I'm going to pick days that are going to be in my favor to be in the stand.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good. Very, very good. Steve, I can't thank you enough for joining us on the show. It's been an honor and a pleasure listening to you. And, you know, we have a tremendous respect for the type of hunting you do and how you go about your methodologies. It's really, it's awe. I'm in awe, to be honest. It's awesome. And thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge to me and to all our listeners. I can't thank you enough.
Well, I hope all the listeners can get something out of it.
I guarantee you they will. And I know you say you're not much of a social media guy, but if we had more questions or if the listeners had other questions, is there a way to reach out to you?
Usually, I'm pretty open in my Facebook. I'll allow most people on. I kind of have a little philosophy. If they have over 500 and some common friends, I kind of don't invite them on, because mostly they're an invite to something they're selling or a product or something.
Right.
And so I've kind of like eliminated. So if it's somebody that is under 100, I'll look at their profile and I see if he's just a regular Joe. I usually invite him.
Gotcha. All right. Fair enough. Well, Steve, we've taken up about an hour here, and I know that you've got some Sitka gear or Sitka hunting to plan for. And
some Sitka hunting.
Sitka hunting. Yeah, that's very cool, man. Nice. Very nice. Well,
all righty, guys.
Good luck with that. And
good talking to you, and you guys good luck the rest of the season.
All right. Same to you, Steve. Thank you so much.
Yeah, take care.
Yeah, take care. Bye-bye. I just don't even know how to wrap my head around Steve Esker's deer hunting abilities and strategies and plans. It's mind-blowing.
Right, and I'm going to tell you how you wrap your head around it. You replay this podcast, and you take some detailed notes, and you learn from one of the best whitetail hunters in the state of Ohio.
Right.
It's the proof's in the pudding here.
I'm already to figure adding things to my plan for next year.
Absolutely.
And that plan starts today. New things I need to be doing right now to prepare for the deer hunt September 15th.
Yeah, it's real interesting how Steve, not only is he growing great antlers, but he's hunting very minimum. And I think that keeps the pressure low, that keeps the activity of human low in his area. Even though he's checking trail cameras, he's not spending hours in there in the ground blind or a tree stand. I think that there is a grand slam, low pressure, hunt the days that are positive for killing big bucks. The wind's right, the conditions are right, the moon's right. It's all, it's all talked about right there. It's all laid out for you.
Yeah. Yep. It's right there. So if you're looking to pick up any new camera equipment, like game camera equipment, some great sales going on as these retailers are unloading their inventory and, Christmas time and all that stuff. But because the season's over, they're just trying to dump it. So if you're thinking about buying some stuff, probably right now is a good time.
Yeah, for sure. And, thanks again, Steve Esker, for joining us.
Thank you to Steve. Learned a ton. So Dusty, I don't know how you follow that act, but do you have a Chubby Tines tip of the week?
Yeah, I do have Chubby Tines tip of the week. One thing that I've been getting a few messages about that, almost in a desperate state of mind, some hunters are, and they're shooting out a few messages. And one thing that I've mentioned to a couple hunters, and as they're telling me that they're hunting on the edge of a tree line and the deer are coming from behind them in the woods, coming out to the edge of the field, and they're talking to me about their setup. And one thing that is really standing out is breaking up their silhouette, and they've neglected to realize that being on the edge of the woods to an open field, as a deer comes from behind you through the woods to the field edge, if you're right on the very edge of that field and the sky's behind you, you're getting almost like your silhouette sticking out to them tremendously. Like if just a scenario here, a guy asked, hey, I've had a buck come through the same trail 3 times. He gets 50 yards. He looks up and sees me. And I'm like, okay, something's telling me that there's something behind you that's really leaving you out in the open. So what the scenario was is he was in the edge, the very edge, one of the trees along the very edge with minimum leaving or brush behind him, branches, anything that break up a silhouette. So what I requested that he do is that he would go in and he would move in approximately 10 to 15 yards interior of the woods. And that way he's got a few trees behind him, and with a few trees behind you, that'll break up your silhouette and up your chances that deer will not pick you out based on your silhouette in the tree. So that's my Chubby Tines tip of the week. Just be sure that you break that silhouette up if you're along the edge of the woods.
Awesome, man. That's a very important one for sure. I've been busted for not doing that. So no, that's a good one. Well, very nice, man. We are on our way to the ATA, hashtag ATA 2016. So if you're going to be in Louisville in town, please send us a tweet if you could, or shoot us an email, and hashtag ATA 2016 if you could. Well, man, I think that's been one tremendous podcast interview show.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And like I said, thanks again, Steve Esker, for opening up to us. And, I think that the listeners will take their hunt to the next level with a podcast like this one.
I agree. Well, this has been fantastic, Dusty. And where can we find you when you're not hanging out here with me on the mic.
Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors, Facebook.com/Chubby Goggler. You can also look me up on Instagram at Chasing Antler. And if you're at the ATA, give us a shout out and look us up. We'll be roaming around, and we got some meetings set up and some podcasts set up, and we're always looking forward to meeting our listeners. If you're going to be there, hook up with us. Jay, where can the people reach out to you when you're not on the mic?
All right. Well, first and foremost, as usual, if you're listening to this podcast on an Apple device, I'd request that if you love the show, leave us a 5-star review. And if you listen to this episode, but you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. Soon you'll be able to listen to the show on the Google Play Store, which should be launching sometime in January. So we're looking forward to that. We have been accepted to their podcast program. If you would like to get a hold of me, shoot me an email, j@bigbuckregistry.com. You can always find us on Facebook, facebook.com/bigbuckregistry. And on that Facebook page, if you would like to be famous for a day and get in front of 200,000 plus diehard deer hunters, please go to bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck, and you will be able to be featured on our page. If you send it in, we review it, and it meets the cut. So there are some criteria to the whole deal. It's not just send it in and we'll post it. There are some things we look at. Yeah, you can find us on Twitter, twitter.com/bigbuckregistry. And if you wouldn't mind, check us out over at the Outdoor Podcast channel, which is also found on iTunes. I think that's a wrap, Dusty.
Everywhere, Big Buck, Big Buck, Big Buck, Big Buck.
Very nice. So I'm Jay Scott.
And I'm Dusty Phillips.
This is the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Can't wait.